with not just the place of torture, but death.
Timol was the first person to die from here.
I don't think I'd be wrong in saying that Timol would have been kept awake from the time of his arrest, literally. The interrogation went on day and night, and it was relentless, and it never stopped until that person cooperated.
Jump, impossible. He could not have done, not Ahmed.
He was thrown out, or he was hung from there, or something happened.
In my view, he has not jumped.
He jumped. It was an interrogation, in my opinion, an interrogation gone wrong. Tragically.
Indians can't fly.
A really bizarre phraseology that they used, almost gleefully, but the sadism was very clearly there.
A very funny joke.
Well, this week the inquest into the death of struggle activist Ahmed Timol started in Johannesburg High Court, and this is the second inquest because Timol died 45 years ago after falling 10 stories in the then notorious John Voster Square building in central Johannesburg whilst he was in police detention. Friends of the late activist Salim Essop and human rights lawyer George Bizos took to the stand this week in the High Court to testify about the last time they saw Timol alive and the torture that he had to endure. The Johannesburg High Court conducted an inspection in loco on Tuesday at the building, which is now known as the Johannesburg Central police station, where detainees were tortured and died at the hands of the apartheid police. The National Prosecuting Authority, the NPA, decided to reopen the case after the late activist's family allegedly found new evidence of circumstances around his death. Joining us now to talk a little bit more about the inquest is Emva Samuel, a director who made a documentary on the life and the death of Ahmed Timol a few years ago. Very good morning to you, Emva. Thanks very much for joining us. Good to see you again after so many years.
After a lot of years.
So, I mean, you came out with this film, and it tells this story which I suppose is representative of that era and what the police were able to do and to get away with. Take us through your research, and at the end of it, what did you think happened?
Okay, well, Peter, it was a long journey. I sort of heard the name Ahmed Timol when I found a Sunday Times article that was done in 1996, and I left it in my study for quite a while, and it grew dust. And in 2011, the SABC were looking for commissions for unsung heroes, and I thought this is a story that needs to be told. And basically, it was a procedure from there where I pitched the idea to the SABC, and I think in around about 2012 it was commissioned, and then intensive research started in trying to do justice to Ahmed Timol's story. I contacted Imtiaz Kaji, who's Ahmed Timol's nephew, and who's sort of spearheading the legacy of Ahmed Timol. And together we came up with the research, and that's how the ball started to roll. And in 2015, the documentary was broadcast on SABC3, and it's done quite well. It was selected for the Durban International Film Festival. It's screened in Canada. And a lot of people have watched and said it's about time stories like this need to be told.
So have you been at the inquest this week?
Yes, I'm actually in discussions presently with the SABC to do a part 2, because the previous documentary ended with George Bizos quoting the apartheid inquest, which said there was no one to blame for Ahmed Timol's death, and that's how the documentary ended. So this inquest opens up a door where we can actually now find someone to blame for Ahmed Timol's inquest.
So who do you think was to blame?
Well, I think during the time that when he was killed was, we were in a state of emergency, and there was a lot of it was a bad time, and especially if you were against the government. So Salim Essop, Dr. Salim Essop, was giving evidence, and he mentions how he was tortured quite severely, almost to the point of death, and he was with Ahmed Timol. They were arrested in the same car and taken into detention. So it goes without saying that if he was tortured, Ahmed Timol was also tortured. So the sham inquest, which said that he had actually committed suicide, you know.
Have some specific names come up in this inquest and in your research of who might have been the ones who last saw Timol alive?
Yes, I mean it's in the records. There are quite a few names, but most, in fact, 95% of the people involved have passed away. But the names are there, and you know, it's actually quite comical to read what they say happened, because it beggars belief.
So at the end of this inquest, do you think we'll be a step closer to closure, or the mystery will continue?
I'm sure we'll be very close to closure, because the evidence is so overwhelming that the inquest was fake, that it was just there to appease the government at that time. So I'm sure there will be a positive conclusion, especially for the family of Ahmed Timol.
What was the new evidence that was introduced by the family?
Well, I think it's more in terms of giving people the opportunity to present evidence, like Dr. Essop, who like I said, who was with Ahmed Timol at the time, and you know, it all leads up to quite a conclusive reduction. Yeah.
All right. What has this movie done for you, and also being at John Voster? Because for me, I'm quite chilled when I'm reminded about just what life was like in real life for a lot of real people. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like you know, I mean, we've worked together, I think, in the early 90s, and so I've been doing a lot of television production, but a lot of it hasn't filled my soul, and working on a production like this did that for me, and so it's moved me in many ways that I never thought possible. So because he was an ordinary guy, a school teacher, but had a secret life, and in that secret life he was actually starting the path for change where we see today what's happened. You know, because of thousands of people like Ahmed Timol, these unsung stalwarts, you know. So it was nice to uncover that story and bring it back to life.
Right. Ember, we're going to have to leave it there, but we certainly look forward to part 2, which is in planning stages, and let's hope that the truth does come out. But thanks very much indeed for bringing this story to people's lives. Ember,
thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Vida.
All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll be back after this.